All right. Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube Social Hour. We are here to talk to you today about the Gemini new moon. And I am with Adrienne Gibson of Jaskirin Astrology. You can find her on Facebook and on Substack. Please go check out her new moon and full moon reports. And we have a couple of our normal collaborators who are off today, and we wish them well, and we'll see them in a couple of weeks. I'm Kara from AstroKara.com, and like I said, today we're going to talk to you all about the Gemini energies. So first I'll say hi, Adrienne, and ask you how you're doing.
Well, hi, Kara. I'm doing pretty well. It's been intense energies for the last week or so, and I know a lot of people that I've talked to are feeling the energies, and I'm no different. And but I'm plugging through, feeling better today now that we've crossed that new moon. I can feel the pressure coming off. So
Yeah, it feels a little lighter to me today as well. So that's good. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the chart and we can just dive right in.
sure.
I would love to start with talking about just the Gemini energy in general, because I don't know, I showed my mug already, but I'm a Gemini sun. I recently had my birthday. But the interesting thing that I see about my own chart is that I also have a South Node in Gemini and my Mercury is in Gemini. So I feel like I am quite the embodiment of this energy. And the thing that I would like to focus on a little bit today is kind of the myth of Mercury, also known as Hermes, depending on which Greek or Roman, whichever god you're talking about, which he was the son of Zeus or Jupiter and Mother Maya, Mother Earth. And he was known as the messenger of the gods. And the reason he was considered the messenger was because he would take messages and goods and even souls between the land of the living and the underworld, kingdom of the dead. And so he's known as the only god who was actually able to freely move between the underworld and the land of the living. And so when I hear about that, or when I think about that story and what it means to me in my Gemini energy, I think about the duality and the duality of the psyche and how we all live with this sense of, if we're thinking about the yin yang, there's light in darkness and darkness in light. And when we think about Gemini as the messenger, in service to both things, in service to the light and in service to the darkness, bringing light to darkness and darkness into light. And so for myself, and for those of you who might be embodying a lot of Gemini energy, I think that we kind of can get a stereotype sometimes as being fickle and dual-minded, and we do like options and we do get bored very quickly, but there is something much more deep that is embodied within that sometimes I think gets overlooked. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So, if you've been following me for a while, a lot of times that I try to focus on the higher vibration or higher evolution and expression of each of the archetypes. I like to bring that forward as an encouragement, because these energies that we've been going through are significantly heavy. Any changes or transformations that we work on personally can feel extremely challenging, and we need a little encouragement. But I want you to know that I don't hold to toxic positivity at all. It's not just about love and light and making everything rainbows and butterflies. It's doing the deep work. And I have been in the depths of the psychic darkness. I have lived there. So when I say that to you, I say that to let you know that I can meet you where you are. That yes, I feel that my goal is to bring light into the darkness it's also to help you see your own darkness in the light and be able to embrace it again, because that is how we truly transform. Which leads me to this Venus and Mars and Leo. And then I'm going to hand it over to Adrienne to talk about the nodes. So how I see Venus and Mars in Leo, and then, Venus is going to be retrograding in Leo this summer, is what is special about you? What's your superpower? What were the things that you enjoyed doing as a child that really sparked something in you? Even if you had a chaotic childhood or a traumatic childhood, I'm hoping that you can find some glimmer of remembrance somewhere in your young life where you felt safe, where you felt like you were seen. And what were you doing? What was the circumstance? And how were you feeling then internally that you can bring out now? That you can focus on and say, you know what, this is something special about me. And now I'm ready to act on that. How I'm going to value myself in a new way about those things that I know I have a purpose for this world, that I have a purpose to bring. There's something important that I'm meant to be here for. And what am I supposed to do about it? And I think part of that is going to come from understanding what's happening with the nodes too. So Adrienne, I'm going to hand that over to you.
All right. Well, in my moon reports, I like to start with the backdrop. And the backdrop for me is what's going on with Pluto. And so Pluto has recently moved back into Capricorn, sits at 29 degrees. I think it's going to go back as far as 27 degrees before it goes forward again, and it won't move into Aquarius until January of 2024. So part of this going back, as I've seen it, is that there are things about the authority that is outside of us, those things that our parents and our jobs and the way the government works, there's a specific way that we should act. And sometimes the way this is against what Kara is talking about is the joy and those parts of us that spark our special interest and our ideas of how we want to be and how we want to act. And so there's this, well, first of all, Kara mentioned Pluto is squaring the nodes, and it's been squaring the nodes for a while. But what I see here is this going back into Capricorn, because there are parts of this nodal axis that are really linked to this Pluto and Capricorn energy. And I'll just talk a little bit about the nodal axis. The south node is in Scorpio right now, and it has been for a little bit of time. And what it's doing is looking at the past, how we've been attached to things in the past, and what are these attachments, these emotional depths, these things that, they're not serving us. We've been attached to things that are not serving us. And there's a link to this Capricorn Pluto energy where it's been dictated, a lot of these things, from the outside. The North Node, being in Taurus, points us to coming into ourselves, really embodying this new energy of self-reliance and self-dependability, and where we're no longer taking everything from outside of ourselves as we would in Capricorn, but to really embody those things inside of ourselves. And so at the same time, Venus is also squaring the nodes, and or has just actually moved out a little bit, but yeah, it's still squaring. And what it's doing is really the resolution of this, embodying our special purpose, what it is that really gives us excitement and joy, the kind of work we might do that we don't even really need to get paid for. Of course, we want to get paid for it, but we enjoy it so much that we would do it for free if we had to. This is being resolved through the North Node, this energy. And the North Node says we have to become self-dependable. We have to become self-reliant. And so, while I'm skipping around, sorry, but
No, great.
the Pluto and the South Node would be the resolution of this square between Pluto and the South Node. And this is to look at what we're attached to that is no longer serving us. And so I feel like I spoke in the beginning about how it's been a rough time. There's a lot of like backward energy that is coming up for us to see. And it doesn't feel comfortable. And the opposite energy of that is to move forward into meeting our needs and really embodying what it is that we feel within inside ourselves. So the other thing I want to talk about is Jupiter, because Jupiter is in a new phase conjunction to the North Node, where it's talking about this expansion. You know, Jupiter is the largest planet, so it's talking about expansion, and we're talking about expansion of our own needs and our own values. And with the North Node, which is the direction we're heading, this new phase energy is really expanding on that movement. And so to me, this is the backdrop for what's happening. We have this energy where old stuff is coming back up. We're looking at it. Really, we need to look at it and resolve it and move toward this energy of integrating the North Node in this expansive energy. And I see this Mars and Venus conjunction as really helping that. Like part of what our body and our inner self really wants and needs is this ability to link in with our true purpose and our sense of joy. And yeah,
I'm sure people are feeling it. I'm sure people that are watching this are like, yes, I've been feeling this. I can't put my, a label on it, or I can't, say what it really is, but it's that feeling inside that you have that push, that impetus, that, I feel like that's a lot of Jupiter too. That's, that expansion that you're talking about is feeling like, yes, this is the thing. This is the time to move, that new phase energy, right? And since
yes,
you were talking about Saturn, I do want, or, Capricorn energy and Saturnian stuff, I wanted to just mention, because Saturn just turned retrograde, stationed retrograde yesterday, and square to Mercury. And Mercury is the ruler of this lunation. So, how I see this Saturn retrograde period in Pisces, and you were kind of mentioning it. I'll just also pull up a repeating theme. If we look up the lunation, it's square to Neptune, which is Piscean energy. So there's a lot of Piscean energy, a lot of Mercurial energy, Gemini energy that is, happening for us. So those archetypes are very important. So when I think about them together, Mercury, Saturn, in the how it shows up in a personal human life, to me, it's embodying that duality of the psyche, understanding that we are both light and dark, and Saturn in Pisces, for me, if we're thinking about Pisces as the understanding or the desire for self-acceptance and self-compassion, then Saturn there brings a level of emotional maturity. And so if we think about it in terms of externalizing our power, that outside of ourselves. And I put this quote yesterday on my socials, that emotional immaturity is seeking validation and your identity outside of yourself. Emotional maturity is realizing that you yourself are the authority and you are the source of love. And that, to me, really embodied that idea of Saturn retrograde in Pisces and what it's teaching us in that square to Mercury. And there's a lot of first quarter energy in this chart, a lot of first quarter squares. We talked about this a little bit before, so I'm going to just mention it. And in evolutionary astrology, when we're looking at phasal relationships, we have to begin with the new phase, because that's what sets the evolutionary intention for the two planets. And so if we're looking at a first quarter square between Saturn and Mercury, we need to go back to when did they actually conjunct? And that was March of 2023, when they were both in Aquarius. And that was just after Mercury's retrograde there. So if we think about those archetypes together, Saturn, Mercury, and the Aquarian energy, Saturn through Aquarius was interesting because those are very different energies, right? It's the structure, the conditioning, and now we're breaking it apart and we're recognizing, oh, wait a minute, I want to start to individuate more. I want to become my own person a little bit more and have my own ideas outside of the groupthink, right? So that's exactly what this is bringing us. And so the first quarter energy is Gemini energy. It's actually Gemini and Leo together. So the fact that we have all of this Gemini energy, the Leo energy there with Mars and Venus, it's very, to me, very obvious. That's how we pull out those red threads. That's how we pull out those repeating themes, that's what we're being taught here. That's the opportunity that we have to grow within this energy. And I'll pause there.
Yeah. I mean, that, and I've also noticed that the sextile between Pluto and Neptune is an important sextile. This is supporting. This is where we're letting go, and like you said, finding that sense of self-acceptance, and that as we go, as Pluto retrogrades and we're getting our chance to look and really, I mean, Pluto is going to transmute everything that it touches. And so there are things that are still left that we're leaving outside of ourselves, that sense of emotional maturity, immaturity. And so we're going to revisit that stuff so that we can really dissolve it. And I think that this is what the sextile is speaking to really, accept ourselves, accept that we can be our own authority and move forward. And we're gaining with this Gemini energy. There's so much energy in Gemini right now, where we're starting to gather information about what the truth is and what our needs are for ourselves right now. And yeah, so I guess, unless you have something else that you want to go into, I'd like to talk about these the nodes of Mars and Venus.
I just
Starting with
wanted to
Mars.
mention one more thing about, because you mentioned that sextile between Pluto and Neptune. It is a supportive aspect, but if we're thinking, and if we're thinking about it in terms of the phases, a sextile is crescent phase, and that's Taurian energy. So again, it comes back to how you value yourself, how you relate to yourself, how we understand that we are sovereign beings within ourselves. And so exactly what you said, the Pluto is saying, here, guys, you got to take a look at this stuff again. You got to confront the parts of yourself that you've left outside of yourself. You got to call your own power back and not be afraid of it. And then that's where the self compassion of Pisces comes in. So I loved how
Yes.
you said it that way. Yes, please, let's dive into the planetary nodes.
Okay, so the planetary nodes essentially tell you what the past, like the lead up into what's going on with these present transits. And so I began with Mars. The outer planets are a little bit more generational, and in fact, like the sometimes like the south node of Pluto is thousands of years old. And so looking at the inner planets are really more helpful to what's happening right now and in the forefront. So the south node of Mars is in, I can't even see it.
Gemini.
Oh, it's up there in Libra.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the North Node. Sorry. Yep.
South node is up there in Libra. And what we're talking about is the past way that we've been acting out our desires. And essentially, we have been acting out our desires through the energy of others. This is where we're talking about putting our power outside of ourselves. And this is the basis for this current energy. And we've talked a little bit about this, but just it's interesting to see it actually as it comes up in the chart. And so, where we have been taught for generations to defer to outside of ourselves, our teachers, our bosses, our spouses, and this is the energy of the past that is shifting. So as Mars moves into the current placement, where, okay, now we're looking at what our own purpose is. Let's begin to act out our own purpose. And this Gemini energy, as Kara said, this Gemini Leo energy is very intertwined with each other, because for many of us, we don't even know what it is that we want. We have to really search. We have to gather this information. And I think that's a lot of what this new moon is about, where we're beginning this new phase of gathering information about what it is that we really want, what it is that we really need, and how we can manifest those things for ourselves. Now, with this conjunction with Venus, and Venus isn't going to actually come into contact with Mars quite yet. I moved the cursor ahead to see when it does. It actually won't come into a conjunction until February of 2024, when it makes its conjunction, interestingly enough, in Aquarius, at the time when we actually get to break free. So we're still gathering information, and for a while, it'll be a long time before Venus actually catches up. But we'll be gathering information on our own needs and how we want to action those needs. And then, like Kara said earlier, Venus is going to go retrograde. So the north node of Mars is in Gemini, which is the energy we're talking about. This is the evolution of Mars. Right now, we are trying to feel into what it is that we like. Go back to your childhood stuff. What did spark you when you were a child? Did you draw? Did people say, oh, you weren't a drawer? Like for me, I like to sing, but my sister used to say to me, don't quit your day job. But I still like to sing, and I do generally when I'm by myself. But these are the kinds of things. What brings you joy? You want to search that out. And the north node of Mars is giving us that energy to be curious and to start looking in the places to find what that is. And for the energy of Venus, I thought this was really interesting. The south node of Venus is in Cancer. And the new moon, at the new moon, the transiting Venus was in Cancer. So I feel like this 2 weeks ago was the basis for what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we are inwardly aligning to our own self-image what we need. This energy has been coming along now for the last 2 weeks, and now within this current Venus, we're now starting to be where we can align those needs with what our true purpose is and how we want to self-actualize in this lifetime. We're all moving in that direction. And so the north node of Venus is right down there, conjunct this new moon. And we're going to be gathering information about that. We're gathering information. So both Mars and Venus, the nodes go back to Gemini as the future. And I think that this is a real visual of how this Mercury or Gemini energy and Leo energy are really tightly intertwined during these times. So
absolutely, that was beautiful. And I think you said that you were talking about Venus in Cancer was at the full moon, the Sagittarius full moon.
Yes,
that was the 2 weeks ago. Yes, that was my Venus return, so that was interesting for me. And actually, the south node of Venus is sitting like right on my Venus. So yeah, that's definitely a theme for me in my lifetime. I'm still working on that. And I think I did want to mention, I talked about the first quarter square between Saturn and Mercury, and then I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with Venus and Mars. But just thinking about the Gemini energy specifically, Mercury rules Gemini. It's in its rulership right now. And so that's a significant repeating theme as well. If we look at this lineup here of how important this Gemini energy is. And as you mentioned, it's that gathering of new information. It's the, seeking out, and it's that yang energy of seeking out things, seeking out those pieces that we may have been missing at some point. It's the, looking, sometimes it is looking back, Saturn retrograde. It's recognizing then those things that, and Mercury even retrograded in Taurus, which again is that internal, how do I relate to myself? How do I value myself? What am I thinking about myself? How do I talk to myself? That internal dialogue is huge. And do we listen to the opinions of others and the feedback of others as they have given it to us? That externalization of power. And, if our parents told us, whatever they've told us, if we were taught that our thoughts don't matter, that our feelings don't matter, that, we don't deserve to be, happy, or whatever crazy nonsense that we, end up coping with. But it's time now to take a look at those opinions and that feedback and that information and decide if it belongs to us. Because you don't have to hold on to it anymore. That's part of the letting go. That's part of the stuff that we might still be attached to that doesn't help us anymore. It's not serving our evolution. It's not serving us as we look at those things, that purpose that we're moving to. So when I'm looking at this Mars and Venus, I wanted to look back at, I have my notes here. So again, if we in evolutionary astrology are looking at any kind of phasal relationship, we go back to the original conjunction. So right now, that Mars-Venus is in a first quarter square to Jupiter. So again, that first quarter energy is Gemini, Leo. It's gathering that information about our purpose, about the things that make us special, about the things that bring us joy and remind us of the childhood pleasures that are inherent to all of us. Even if we didn't necessarily get to enjoy it when we were a child, you still can enjoy it now. But we have to give ourselves permission, right? So the first quarter square, if we're going to look back at when those things were conjunct, Mars was conjunct Jupiter back in Aries last May 30th of 2022. So if we're thinking about those archetypes, Mars, Jupiter, and Aries, what is that's all about? Really just gathering up that courage and saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. It's something that just wells up from under inside of you that you're just like, I got to go do this. I cannot stay in this situation anymore. I cannot stay in this stuckness anymore. I have to move. And so this is part of what are we moving toward? What are we moving into? Jupiter's saying, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about how you value yourself? Do you believe that you have value? Because I'm here to tell you that you do. And what is it that, makes you special? And what are those things that you enjoy that you can begin to bring out more? Venus was conjunct Jupiter in Pisces in April of 2022. So again, Venus and Jupiter in Pisces, to me, feels like that deep self-compassion, just really settling into when I feel the most harsh on myself, because we are our own worst critics, are we not? And, yeah, I know how that feels. And sometimes we don't even know what self-compassion looks like. And so, there's lots of skill building availability for that. But one of the things is just giving yourself permission to say, I'm human and I'm allowed to make mistakes. We can feel embarrassed about it. We can feel frustrated about it. Just allow yourself to feel and then just say, okay, what can I learn from it? Or how do I move on or whatever? But just that understanding that you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And that's okay. And there was another one that I wanted to look at. Oh, okay. So let me see. There we go. So
Yes.
Uranus they're still within orb of this first quarter square to Uranus. They're actually just before the first quarter square. So that's on the Gemini side of things. So that gathering information. So if Uranus is coming to break down that old conditioning, things are coming to our mind, and it might come to you pretty suddenly sometimes. It might be a breakthrough, or it might just be something a little bit more subtle, but it'll often probably happen quickly, where you'll have a memory or you'll have a flash of something, and it'll just pay attention to those things. So again, if we're looking at the original conjunctions, Mars conjunct Uranus was in Taurus just in July, at the end of July. And then Venus was conjunct Uranus in Taurus and the North Node just in June 11th. I'm sorry, no, these were 2022. Pardon me. So this was last year. But they also came through again this year. So I must have missed those dates. But Uranus has been in Taurus for a long time, so we know those conjunctions were in Taurus. And they were with the North Node at the same time as well. So it all has to do with that understanding of our value. How are we valuing ourselves, and how are we allowing ourselves to embody those things now? And I'll pause there because I know that was a lot.
One of the things that had come to me during the full moon was this trauma that the collective trauma that we've all been affected by with this Uranus and Taurus, that it's part of this pattern. I think I brought it up. You were in on the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago, where we're talking about the crash of the stock market, and that affected the way we, at least in this country, and I'm not, up on the history of, other countries and other places, but at least in the United States, we have, it changed the way we were living. There was, an abrupt change. And really, this is where the mass production of everything really ramped up. A lot of roads were built, electricity, it was all moving toward outside of ourselves. And so this is the wound that we are breaking free from. We are now trying to embody for ourselves in this time where we don't know how to do it. I mean, it's I have a lot of difficulty with it. I mean, I'm working on trying to embody what my needs are, and I'm sure other people are as well, because we really aren't, we haven't been conditioned to do that. And one of the things that I have been thinking about is that in this new energy of coming into this Mars and Venus in Leo is where we really are trying to heal from this past way of living. One of the things, everything is changing now. And so part of the shift is from this outer sense of how we're going to act, this inner sense of authenticity and the ability to actualize our own desires instead of the pigeonhole that we've all been sort of made to fit into. And this is a scary thing. We've never done this before. And so part of this Gemini energy is for us to look and find what that is for us. I had written down some things in my moon report, which talked about this murkiness of Pisces, of the Neptune and Pisces energy, where we can't even really see what it is that is being transmuted. I mean, there's healing there, but at the same time, you know, we talked about the duality of it. There's this murkiness. And so it's almost like we don't actually see the direction that we're going, but we're being pushed to move that direction anyway. And so there may be a lot of tension that we're feeling as we shift from this outer authority place where Pluto is bringing us back to relook, and then how to bring that reality into our inner selves. Pluto North Node. This is the crisis.
The Pluto to the North Node is crisis
Yeah.
in consciousness,
Crisis in consciousness. Yeah, that's
which
what
is
I have.
Capricorn. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
so,
Aquarius. Yeah.
and we are learning to really learn to believe what we feel and perceive from inside of ourselves instead of what we're told to believe. And that's a really scary place to be, because we really haven't done that before. But it's a matter of learning to trust ourselves. And I think ultimately that is the growth period, how that we're gaining through, you know, being curious. What can we do? What are the kinds of things that will help us?
How many
And
times were we told as children, you should just know? You should know better. How in the world would anybody know better or know, period, if they were never taught? Or if they were never taught how to connect to themselves. And so that always stuck with me, and it just kind of jumped out at me when you were talking about that. So because that trust is here, Jupiter in
yeah,
Taurus, trusting in your body. What does your somatic feeling tell you? You know, getting back in touch and understanding that, because we were never taught that. We don't know what that is, or you hear about it, you know what your gut feeling is, right? That is that. And you say, trust that gut feeling. I don't know, remember where I was going with that, but just the idea of trust and getting back into the body and, you know, not knowing what you were saying is how it's a really scary place to be. And Jeffrey Wolf Green used the example, and Simon uses the example of, you know, being out in a boat in the ocean, like just
yes,
a little rowboat. You're out there by yourself, and there's nothing in sight, no land, no votes, no lights, nothing. And the only way that you can know which way to go is to listen to your inner compass.
Yes.
And it's trial and error sometimes. That's some of the
Yes.
Aquarian energy. Just try it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, try something else. And
Yeah.
try not to get so fixated on, but we get, like you said, we're attached to old ways of doing things. We're attached to safety and what feels emotionally safe for ourselves. And so sometimes we just have to do things afraid.
For sure. And that's another thing that it makes me think of is that inner compass that we all have it, but it's not been developed in us
Mm-mm.
because we have been taught to put our trust and faith in that which is outside of us. And so I think part of this Neptune is in Pisces is aligning that for us so that we can really learn to feel what our own inner body is telling us to do. It's a little interesting. I had an errand yesterday where I took somebody to the bus station and I didn't know how to get back and I was driving, so I didn't put on the GPS and I literally had to feel my way home. And I almost took a different route and something told me in the inside, take this one. And it was the right one. And I was like, I thought to myself, well, yeah, there you go. And it's things like this, sometimes just trust yourself. It
Yes.
might go wrong, but you'll learn. I think that the more we put energy into trusting ourselves and doing what it is we think we need for ourselves, the more positive reinforcement we're going to get
Yes.
from the universe.
And the part of that that comes with it is because we have not been taught or allowed to trust ourselves in that way. Sometimes when we try to do that, we are we have been told that we are selfish or that, it's been suppressed. And so again, that's really scary. And that's part of that first quarter energy too, right? It's that natural square between Aries and Cancer of, the separation anxiety of, I'm used to feeling this way. This is familiar to me. And so even if it's not comfortable, it's familiar. And trying to step outside of that is scary. But,
Yes.
you know, when you begin to trust yourself and that guilt sets in, or you get that automatic negative thought that says, oh, I shouldn't be selfish, give that back. That doesn't belong to you anymore.
Yeah.
It's not selfish to take care of yourself. It's not selfish to listen to your inner promptings.
Yes. I agree with that. And particularly as the nodes shift in the middle of July, we're going to be all working on that dynamic between self and other. We're we're that's where the lesson's going to come for a year and a half. We're going to be faced with all kinds of situations where we have to choose. We'll have to make choices in a new way. We'll be looking at the old ways and we'll, you know, just like we have been looking in with the South Node in Scorpio, looking at these old patterns, we're going to be looking at these old patterns of the way we've related to other people. And we're going to be taking a new direction in how we relate to ourselves. And I think that this is a lot of the Taurus energy, the Gemini energy, the Leo energy that we're being pulled through to help us to grow in that direction and really bring it home when we have for the next year and a half the
Yes,
nodes in.
I feel that 100% that it has definitely been as deep as we've had to go with this South Node through Scorpio. It's definitely preparing us now to this Aries Libra axis that we're going to be moving into. How do you show up? How do we show up for ourselves as ourselves in what we relate to? Aries
Yep.
Libra. Definitely. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll obviously be talking more about that as that energy comes up and
For sure we will. Yes.
as that comes
There's a
to
lot
it,
to talk about there.
yeah, about a month. We got about a month left of And so, when those nodes are getting ready to shift, it's just like when a planet's getting ready to shift into a new sign. So it's like there's an added intensity that's right there at that edge. And I feel like we've given a lot of information this time. I think that, yeah, so come back and watch it again, because there's going to be little tidbits that are going to stick out for you at different times, I think. So I think we are just about ready to wrap things up, and I'm actually going to add a meditation to the end of the video. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Let's begin by finding a comfortable, quiet place where you can sit or lie down undisturbed for the duration of this meditation. Close your eyes and take a nice deep breath, filling your lungs with fresh air, and slowly release your breath. With each exhale, allow yourself to relax deeper and deeper into a state of calm and peace. As you breathe in and out, begin to visualize yourself standing in the center of a vast open space. This is a space that represents your personal power, your inner strength, and your ability to create and manifest your desires. In this space, you are surrounded by all of the things that bring you joy and happiness. You can feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, the softness of the grass beneath your feet, and the gentle breeze on your face. You feel connected to the earth completely, and you know that you are a powerful creator in your own right. As you stand in this space, affirm to yourself that you are a powerful being capable of achieving anything you desire. Repeat to yourself, I am powerful. I am capable. I am deserving of all that I desire. Take a moment to acknowledge any areas of your life where you have given away your power or allowed others to control your decisions. Release any feelings of guilt or shame associated with these experiences, and commit to reclaiming your power and standing in your own truth. As you continue to breathe deeply, allow yourself to feel the energy of your personal power flowing back into your body. Visualize a golden light flowing from the earth into the soles of your feet, up through your legs, and into your solar plexus. Feel this energy expanding and growing with each breath, filling your entire being with a sense of confidence, strength, and empowerment. Repeat the affirmation, I am powerful, and I choose to use my power for good. Take a moment to set an intention for how you will use your personal power to create positive change in your life and in the world around you. This could be as simple as committing to a daily meditation, as bold as starting a new business, or as simple as stopping a habit. As we bring this meditation to a close, take another deep breath in, feeling the power of your intention and your personal power coming back into your being. As you exhale slowly, allow the feeling of calm and peace to remain within you and around you. When you are ready, gently open your eyes, come back to the present moment, and know that you have the power within you to create the life you desire.